Life has a way of throwing us into storms we never imagined. For years, my marriage had been calm, almost too calm. My husband, Daniel, was a good man, steady, reliable, kind, but somewhere along the way, the fire between us had dimmed. We lived more like companions than lovers, more like business partners than soulmates. I told myself that love changes with time, that comfort was better than chaos. Yet deep inside, a part of me ached for something more, something passionate, unpredictable, alive. That ache came to the surface the day 2 men entered my life. It began innocently enough. One was Ethan, an old friend from college who had recently moved back into town. He was charming, with that effortless charisma that drew people in, and the moment I saw him after years apart, memories I thought I had buried came flooding back. We had never been more than friends in the past, but there had always been a spark I had ignored, choosing Daniel instead. Now, standing across from him again, I felt that spark flare into something dangerous. The second was Adrian, a colleague from work who had become a trusted confidant. He was different from Ethan, quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who listened deeply and spoke with meaning. Over the months, we had shared long conversations, laughter over coffee, and moments that felt far too intimate for 2 people who weren't supposed to be more than coworkers. Adrian understood sides of me I hadn't shown Daniel in years, the doubts, the dreams, the fears I carried silently. Both men arrived in my life at the same time, as though fate itself had conspired to test me. And as much as I wanted to resist, my heart began to shift in ways I couldn't control. Daniel noticed the changes. He wasn't oblivious. He saw the way I smiled more easily, the way my phone lit up with messages, the way my thoughts seemed far away even when I was sitting beside him. He asked me once, in a voice so quiet it nearly broke me, "Is there someone else?" I denied it, of course. I told him he was imagining things, that work had simply been stressful. But the guilt in my chest grew heavier with every lie. Then came the night when everything unraveled. Daniel had invited some friends over for dinner, a small gathering at our home. I was in the kitchen preparing when the doorbell rang. He went to answer, and when I stepped up moments later, my heart nearly stopped. Ethan stood there, smiling warmly, holding a bottle of wine. And behind him, walking in with quiet confidence, was Adrian. Both men, the 2 lives I had been living in secret, had arrived at my doorstep at the same time, welcomed by my unsuspecting husband. The air turned electric with tension. I tried to mask my shock, greeting them as though nothing was amiss, but inside panic surged. How had this happened? Had fate really brought them here to face me under Daniel's roof? Dinner was torture. Daniel, ever the gracious host, chatted easily, unaware of the undercurrents flowing across the table. Ethan's eyes lingered on me with playful familiarity, while Adrian's gaze held something deeper, something knowing. And all the while, Daniel laughed, poured drinks, and clinked glasses, never realizing the storm raging silently around him. I could hardly breathe. Every laugh felt forced, every word a lie. My heart pounded with fear of being exposed, fear of what would happen if the truth surfaced in this room. Finally, after dessert, Daniel stepped out to take a phone call. That was when Ethan leaned closer, his voice low. "You didn't tell me you were married," he whispered, a mix of hurt and accusation in his tone. Adrian's eyes narrowed as he glanced between us, the realization dawning on him. "So this is why you always pulled back," he murmured, his voice heavy with disappointment. I wanted to disappear. The walls seemed to close in, and tears stung my eyes. For months, I had balanced on the edge of a dangerous game, and now the truth had come crashing down all at once. When Daniel returned, he sensed the heaviness immediately. His gaze moved between the 3 of us, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What's going on?" he asked slowly, his voice tense. Silence filled the room. My throat closed up, but the weight of it all crushed me until the words tumbled out. I confessed, about Ethan, about Adrian, about the feelings I had been too afraid to face. I told him everything, my voice shaking, my heart breaking, the truth spilling like shattered glass across the floor. Daniel's face was a storm of emotions. Shock, anger, pain. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, regret etched in his features, while Adrian looked away, his jaw tight with quiet hurt. It was chaos, and in the middle of it, I felt my world collapse. But then something unexpected happened. Daniel didn't explode. He didn't shout or curse. Instead, he stood there, breathing heavily, and said in a voice raw with emotion, "I just wanted you to be happy. I didn't realize how much I had lost you." Those words broke me more than anger ever could. Because in that moment, I saw the truth, not just of my betrayal, but of the emptiness that had crept into our marriage long before Ethan or Adrian ever appeared. The evening ended with Ethan leaving silently, his eyes full of unspoken goodbyes, and Adrian walking out with a solemn nod. And then it was just Daniel and me, sitting in the ruins of our life together. I expected him to walk away that night. I expected our marriage to shatter beyond repair. But instead, he sat down across from me, his hands trembling, and said, "If we're going to survive this, we need to start being honest with each other and with ourselves." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a chance. A fragile, painful, desperate chance. The weeks that followed were the hardest of our lives. We fought, we cried, we broke apart, and came back together again. I cut ties with Ethan and Adrian, not because they hadn't meant something to me, but because I realized that chasing sparks outside my marriage would never heal the wounds inside it. If I truly wanted love, real love, I had to rebuild it where it began. Slowly, painfully, Daniel and I began to talk again. Not just about daily routines or responsibilities, but about our fears, our desires, the things we had hidden for too long. We sought counseling, we rediscovered intimacy, and little by little, we found our way back to each other. It wasn't easy. There were nights he couldn't look at me without seeing betrayal, and nights I couldn't sleep for the guilt that haunted me. But there were also nights we held each other tightly, realizing that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing to stay, even when everything feels broken. In time, the two men who had once threatened to destroy my marriage became the reason I fought to save it, because they forced me to see what I had lost and what I still stood to lose if I didn't fight harder. And Daniel, my husband, surprised me most of all. His strength wasn't in ignoring the pain or pretending it hadn't happened. It was in facing it head-on and still choosing to love me through it. Looking back now, I see that night not as the end of us, but as the beginning of something new. Something rawer, more honest, more real. When two men entered my life, my husband never expected the outcome. Truthfully, neither did I. But in the wreckage of betrayal, we found the fragile, beautiful chance to begin again.